Good morning. I'm Leona Dooley, and this is Ebony, Ivy, and Thyme in the kitchen. This week in the kitchen, we're going to be cooking up wonderful dishes, and we're also going to be making some things that are pretty and nice for our table. And most of all, we're going to be spending time with our family. And so, if you want to join me in the kitchen, I hope first that you'll subscribe, and so that you'll know when I upload, you'll hit the notifications bell below. Now, beyond that, I hope you will have a blessed week this week in the kitchen. So, without further ado, let's get to cooking. Tonight in the kitchen, we are going to prepare a baked chicken with dried cremini mushrooms. We're going to have rice. We're going to fix a little gravy to go along with that rice. And so what you see here is that I'm starting to cut up some onions. And you know, when I bought these onions, they were so little. Notice how small they are. And so I have to use two. So I'm going to get those cut up, and you'll see on the side where I also have my chicken broth, because I'm going to make a portion of the gravy in the pan with the chicken and the mushrooms, and another portion of the gravy, the main portion, I'm going to actually prepare outside of this particular pan, and we'll have it ready so I can just pour some of those juices over into the pan, stir it, and it's ready to go. By the time the chicken comes out, everything that's going to accompany it will be ready. I'm going to pull some mushrooms out once those mushrooms have had a chance to bake in the sauce, and it's going to be so delicious. It's a very filling dish, and the neat thing is that a portion of the broth and the mushrooms I'm going to use later, probably in a week or so. I'm going to use it actually in another dish, so you will see that some of that broth and mushrooms come back. So you'll probably look at it and think, oh my goodness, why is she fixing so much? Well, you know, when you're cooking, the good thing about cooking is that you want to be able to not only prepare for today, but also think about another day. So each time you get in this kitchen, don't just think about one, think about 2 different days. So you'll see I'm kind of mixing those onions up in the little bit of oil. I had 2 tablespoons of oil. I'm sprinkling in some pepper, and I just want to flavor this layer of the dish. That's the pepper. Here's some salt that I'm going to add, because after all, your vegetables don't come seasoned. Now I've added the chicken in, and he's been nice and clean. I'm going to put a little tiny bit of oil on him and get him all oiled up and ready for the oven. Now, while I'm doing this, my oven is heating to 425, because when I put this into the oven, I want that skin to sizzle when it first goes in. Now, this is house seasoning that's going over the chicken right now. So you'll see it looks like I'm sprinkling a lot, but I am actually seasoning the inside, the outside, and I'm going to season the back of the chicken as well, because after all, he needs to taste good from all directions. So let's give him a little rub down and a pat down. Get those legs taken care of. And he is ready. Now remember, I said I was using a dried mushroom, so I had to hydrate it. I didn't throw away the giblet. I didn't throw away the neck or any of that. I am including that in the pan so that as though that piece is cooking, it's also seasoning the broth as well. Now I'm washing my hands because that's the last time I really need to touch this raw chicken. So I wanted to give that a good wash. And now we are just about ready for those mushrooms. There they are. They've been rehydrated. And I'm going to take a handful and start to sprinkle them around the chicken. And you'll notice I'm using quite a few. Now the real reason why I'm doing this is because I just had a few left in my bag. I didn't want to put a bag back into storage with just a few teeny tiny bits of mushrooms. So I rehydrated them. I'm going to use them. I'm putting some inside of the chicken as well as outside of the chicken. That rehydrated juice I'm kind of pouring over and into the sauce as well. So we're putting those mushrooms down into the pan. Let's get as much of that juice done as possible. Okay. Now I have my chicken broth. I'm giving it a good stir. You can use canned broth, you can use box broth, or you can use homemade broth. Today, I'm just using a broth that I bought. But very often, I will actually use some homemade broth that I make, or an enhanced broth, where it's a combination of the box broth and chicken, where I boil the chicken in the broth and get that extra flavor. So I'm going to give the pan a good wipe. The oven is ready at 425 and we are going to place it into the oven. It's going to stay in there at least a good 30 minutes first before I check on it. I'm sprinkling a little pepper in because that it just needs a little extra. And I didn't want to leave that out. The more I season now, the less I'll have to season later. All right. All right, I'm putting my broth together. I'm pouring in the broth that I had from the box, as well as the leftover mushrooms and the juice off of those mushrooms. And I'm putting those together and just kind of cleaning things up while I'm getting ready to go to the stove. So lots of hand washing, and you'll see that we're just going to clean this area up real good. The advantage of that parchment just keeps everything clean, keeps any chickeny stuff off the counter. And fold it and go. Put it in straight into the trash can. So I'm wiping things down. I have a sink that has soap and a little touch of bleach. All right, I have my skillet on the stove, and you'll see where I put in 3 pats of butter and just a tiny bit of oil. Now I'm seasoning this with some house seasoning, some red pepper flakes, and I'm going to let that butter melt because that's where I'm going to start my gravy. So let's get that melted. Using my favorite wooden spoon. You know how I am about those wooden spoons. They're a must. They're very protective for your cookware. You can use them with any cookware. All right, there we go. Now we're going to add in some goodies because we want this gravy to be absolutely delicious. Okay, we're starting, and it's pretty, the pan is pretty hot at this point. I've added in an onion that I've chopped, and I'm going to let that saute for just a few moments. Let's give it a good stir because we need for this part to be really just barely cooked. Now we're going to add in something else. Oh, we're checking on that chicken just to give it a check. Remember, 425-degree Fahrenheit oven. And that's for the first 30 minutes. And after that 30 minutes, we're going to cut it down to 350 and let it go for 1 hour. All right, I'm adding 2 heaping tablespoons of flour to the pan. And then I'm going to toast the flour with the onions and the seasoning. And I want it kind of a golden brown. So that's going to take a minute or two. I may have to add just a tiny bit more oil, but we'll see how it goes. Now definitely with this nonstick pan, we would not be able to use any type of metal spoon. We maybe could use some type of plastic or rubber, but it would definitely have to be able to take the heat. So, wooden spoon, perfect. I'm getting another pan that I'm going to actually finish the gravy in. And then I'm going to use this skillet for the rice. I've already cooked about 8 cups of rice, even though we're not going to eat 8 cups of rice tonight. I thought I had my light on, but as you can see, I didn't. Sorry. Okay, let's give that a good stir. This is one of those dishes that comes together so quickly, and really you're going to find that you're going to have almost an hour to do something else, whether it's relax, whether it's help the kids with their homework, or whatever it may be that you want to do. You'll have a chance to do that. All right, I'm pouring in the rest of the broth. Let me get my whisk. And we're going to whisk this real good. Now watch how this liquidy mixture comes together. Now remember, that was 2 heaping tablespoons of flour that we browned and then put in about 4 cups of broth. Really, I think those Chinese containers hold about a quart. So just figure about a quart of broth. Now, the hotter this gets, the thicker it's going to get. And you may find that actually you might need to add a little more juice, but guess where the juice is going to come from? The juice is going to come from the pan, that skillet that is in the oven with the chicken and the mushrooms. Look at that gravy. It's thickening up. Oh, it looks so good. There you go. Wow. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. Give it a little taste. See if I need anything, but I'm good. So, I'm getting my other pan and I'm going to pour this into it. And you're thinking, what? Yep, I'm going to sit it over to the side because remember, I'm going to be using some of those juices from the baking turkey. Now, what I'm doing right now is not washing the pan out. What I'm doing is just wiping the sides of the pan off. And I'm going to cut the heat down just a little bit because what I'm going to place into this pan is some of the rice that I cooked. I have a huge container of rice. See that big container? I do not need all of that rice tonight. So I'm going to take some of that rice out and place it into the skillet, just enough for hubby and I for tonight. Now what I'll do with the rest of that rice, once it all cools, then I will bag it, flatten it, and zip it, put it into the freezer, and it's ready for another meal. Had to do a little quick stirring before I could get you back because I didn't want the rice to start to stick. Now, I've gotten the chicken out of the oven to take a look at it. And while it looks great, it's not done yet. But what I want is some of the juice and some of the mushrooms. So I'm taking those out. Now, I won't get all of them, but I'm going to get a large amount. Now, while I'm at it, I put a little juice over the chicken because I do want to keep it nice and moist. And I can tell you this, it was moist. Doing the 425 down to 350, and do set a timer for that 30 minutes because that first 30 minutes at 425 is crucial. And then cutting it back to 350 gives it a chance to, first of all, at 425, to seal everything in. And then once everything is sealed into the skin, then everything on the inside gets cooked and stays moist. It is the most moist chicken ever. You'll see I'm still scooping. And I'm also scooping some of those juices into the gravy. Trying to work around the chicken because, needless to say, I don't want to take it out. Okay, gravy. Honey, that is liquid gold going into that pan. Let's get a little bit on that chicken, and that baby's gonna go back in the oven. Oh yeah. Now we're gonna get it back in. Now I'm going to take a minute to kind of clean up the stove and get everything kind of cleaned up, because remember we talked about in the cleaning video that as you're cooking you want to clean as you cook. Have that dishwasher ready, have your dishwater made so that you can clean all of your utensils or anything that you use while you're cooking. And when your dinner is ready and you're ready to sit down, the only thing that's dirty are the couple of pots that you may have on the stove. Now here I've got the rice. It's got its juices already in it, and the mushrooms are in there. It's already seasoned. So I'm just going to put it on very, very low. Very, very, very low. You could put a top on this and just cut it almost off, just so that it comes back up to temperature just enough, but you're really not cooking it because the mushrooms are done. The rice is done. It's just a matter of it being warm when it's time for dinner, actually hot when it's time for dinner. Now over in the pot where the gravy is, I added the juice from the chicken, and I'll add a little more before it's all over with, but I've cut that eye on, and I've put it on low so that it can also develop its flavors while we're waiting for the chicken to come out of the oven. Alright, I got my nice hot water going. I'm cleaning things up while the chicken is baking. I've got plenty of time to do a few things, get the counter all cleaned off. See my little device for protecting my silverware. I'm putting it into the disposal. Now guys, I'm a little anal. All of this is going to eventually go into the dishwasher, but I'm washing it anyway for now. My knives I keep up there because I have a tendency to cut myself, and so I'm just protecting my hands. Okay, we're good to go. We're going to give the stove a wipe off. And you do want to do that while you're cooking so that things don't stick. You're going to have a few splatters, but it doesn't have to be bad. Alrighty then. Guess what time it is? I am going to bring that chicken out. And what I'm going to do is to actually take it off the skillet and sit it on the parchment paper. That's why I have the parchment paper set up there. I want to lift that chicken out with my tongs. There we go. Because he's going to need to be cut and sliced.
This week in the kitchen, we have had such a blessed time together. We've been able to laugh, we've been able to play, we've been able to just spend time together as friends and family. I hope God continues to bless you and keep you safe as you journey on the rest of this year. I hope that you will come back to my channel. I hope that you are feeling wonderful, and if not, that God will give you the strength to work through whatever it is that is troubling your body at this time. Now, spend some time this week with your family. Spend some time this week loving on them each and every day. Have a wonderful week and a wonderful time in the kitchen.